Hi there, this is Donna Thistlethwaite from Mentally Wealthy, and I'm very excited to have Lison Mage with me today. Lison's an author, corporate facilitator, and a high-performance coach. She works primarily with technology companies to elevate engagement, improve well-being, and increase performance by providing their leaders and teams with practical and science-based strategies and tools to foster cognitive diversity and enhance their decision-making processes. So welcome, Lison.
Thank you, Donna. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. So Lison has written an amazing book called Act Before You Overthink. So Lison and I were introduced by a mutual friend quite a few months back, and I became aware of Lison's book launch, and I went along to support her because I've got so much admiration for anyone who actually writes a book. And when I was there, what I realized is that any of us can fall into overthinking, and I actually purchased the book on the night and have loved it. It's beautifully written, brilliantly researched, and it is filled, absolutely jam-packed, filled with strategies that can help us combat overthinking. So I really loved, Lison, at the end of each chapter, how you had the how-to section. So valuable, all those strategies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did them because I think it's a good way for people to reopen the book and quickly find information again, and they can quickly find. So I'm all about efficiency, and I thought it would be an efficient way for people to get and expand the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did exactly that because it's been quite a few months since I read the book. I was like, gee, I really need to reconnect in with this content fairly quickly. So Lison, tell us about how you define overthinking. What is it?
So, Donna, that is a very simple question, right?
It sounds it.
But the answer is much more complex because I spent a year, in fact, trying to get to a definition, and even, psychologists and behavioral scientists disagree on the exact definition of overthinking. So many of them, they will call this rumination, and even saying that overthinking is a non-scientific naming.
Right.
And in 2009, there has been a meta-study that has been done. So a meta-study is a study aggregating a lot of different studies.
Yep.
That has, all of them have been done some research on overthinking, and they found more than 15 different definitions.
That makes it tricky, yeah.
So with this in mind, that's why I was on my way to interview more than 365 people worldwide, asking, about their relationship with overthinking. And so after a year, I worked on simplifying this problem and establishing a sort of umbrella definition. And I'm saying that overthinking is an excess of thoughts that lead to harmful consequences.
Okay. So an excess of thoughts that leads to harmful consequences.
That's my simple definition.
Yeah, beautiful. I like that. So as you know, Lison, and I imagine many of our listeners will know, I'm particularly interested in well-being and mental health. And I just wondered, how does overthinking impact our well-being, do you think?
It's impacting our well-being massively. And in fact, you know what, Donna, not even only our well-being. I mean, when you talk about well-being, you talk about mental and physical health, right?
Totally.
Because, it's impacting both. So study demonstrated that overthinking causes an increase of duration and amplifies the intensity of negative emotion, such as stress, anxiety, and worry. And as well, this, for example, if it's stress, if it's prolonged for too long, it can even lead to burnout.
Yeah.
And overthinking is a strong predictor of depression. In fact, one of the most shocking stats I found is that overthinkers are 4 times more likely to fall into depression than non-overthinkers.
Wow.
And again, I don't want to, but there is a lot of things to say in how it can affect us. And so also overthinking reduces the quality and the duration of our sleep.
Right.
So definitely, overthinking play a massive role in affecting, our well-being. So we need to take care of ourselves. So to do that, we need to manage our overthinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we know if we're prone to overthinking? Like, what are the signs of it?
That's a really good question. And I think that we could see it as maybe like an analytical layer and with an emotional layer. That's
Right.
how I like to see those signs. So first, it's when we need to talk about sign, it's like what is triggering our overthinking.
Yeah.
And so for the kind of analytical part is about the fear of failure, like of making a mistake or of being wrong. That is a strong precursor of overthinking. So if you happen to, for example, want to make a big purchase, like buying a house, and that you go into a search of finding more information, make analysis, and in spreadsheet, watch video, read books, to ensure that you know everything before you make your decision. That kind of like a sense of twisted perfectionism, where you might end up setting yourself unrealistic standard of performance and work tirelessly to attain them. And so this whole behavior is motivated by the fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Like not choosing of what is the best would be seen as failing, which means like you are not in control or not competent. So, and parenthesis, like we need to reinterpret what failure is.
Yeah.
Failures are like vaccines. We fear the needle and dread the moment we will be stung. But the same way as vaccines build up our physical immune system, failure and mistake can build up our psychological immune system. They offer the opportunity to improve our resilience and to grow. So that was the analytical aspect. And in terms of emotional aspect, it's very similar. In fact, we have to focus on what triggers our overthinking. And in this case, it's more a fear of abandonment. We fear to not be enough and consequently not being worthy of being loved. And so often the overthinkers are interviewed would say that they fear dying alone. And they could adopt behaviors such as people pleasing and always saying yes. So I think, there could be some sign that you go into overthinking.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like it's definitely has a risk of causing some real negative consequences in our lives. So you mentioned the impact of well-being on our well-being. Are there other consequences of overthinking that would be helpful for our listeners to be aware of?
Yeah. In fact, many consequences. So it depends of your overthinking type. But one that is usually ignored is that overthinking can lead us to stagnation and over time to regression. So in fact, you can see overthinking like an assassin that sets its sights on your dreams, on your aspiration, on your growth. And most of us, we don't realize it. The reason why is that overthinking is taking its time. It's called methodical and relentless. Bit by bit, it is poisoning everything, making sure that nothing can blossom. So overthinking will lead to inhibitive behaviors such as avoidance, procrastination, and even resignation. And so in those states, we are stuck. We are stuck in our thoughts. We keep on looping in our mind. We go into rabbit holes and we don't take action. We are paralyzed in our reflective state, wondering if we will make an error or how other people will interpret things. And when that happens, we are not, we cannot learn, we cannot grow. And when we look back 6 months of our life, 1 year of our life, 10 years from now, we realize we should have tried. we should have tested, we should have experienced. Because if we keep on overthinking, all we will be left is with lifelong regrets.
So it sounds like, it can be quite crippling and really impact our potential,
Correct.
our ability to reach our potential.
Yeah, and that's the most ignored consequence of overthinking, in my opinion.
Yeah. Wow, thank you. So in your book, I remember there were different types of overthinkers. So you just mentioned about like the analytical sort of overlay and the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth sharing with our listeners like the different types that sit within those?
Yeah. So I came up with those two categories, and then I have 6 different types. So I call them the finishers, the helpers, the dreamers, the observers, the performers, the maximizer. And I'm going to share quickly a few of those types and go more in depth maybe with the type that I feel is the most out there.
Yeah, most common.
Yeah, most common.
Yeah, great.
So the finisher, it's people, they want to complete things to show their competence.
Yeah.
The helper is someone that will crave connection and need validation from others, so they end up saying yes to everything and everyone. The performer, it's kind of an actor playing a role to fit in, like a social chameleon, whatever social setting, they will change themselves to fit in. It's kind of like the performer and the helper, they're a bit of the same, but they don't do it the same way. Mm-hmm. The observer, they mistake patience for procrastination. So they are waiting for the right time to do something. And so they might consume a bit of data and then find excuses that based on the data, they can't do something right now.
Mm-hmm. And they're really avoiding, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like they say, I'm like being patient, but in fact it turns into procrastination.
Yeah.
Like not to do the thing, and why I should not do the things, because I'm patient, but not really in fact.
So they're almost telling themselves a lie as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so the dreamer, so they are very similar to the observer, at the emotional level, and they might go into daydreaming. They will kind of mistake avoidance for attentiveness. For example, you could have a conversation with a daydreamer and say, I feel you. And because I feel you, I know it's not the right time to do this. And they can be very empathetic. And I feel that the one that people recognize themselves most with is a maximizer, which is a sort of perfectionism too. Mm-hmm. And so the maximizer, they are people that hope to achieve the perfect outcome or the best outcome. And they will bring... That will bring them to consume too much information. So they want to find the best flat to buy, the best presentation, the best tech object to buy, the best career path to follow. And to illustrate this, this behavior, why it's bad for us, I used an illustration in the book. So it's a bit harder in the podcast to show it. But basically, when we can see on this picture is a possum. And the possum is a big rodent. And overnight, the possum broke into the bakery. Yep. And he found a lot of patisserie to eat. Yep. And so he ate as much as he could. And the next day when people enter into the bakery, they found the possum defeated, like his belly triple size, because he ate so much he couldn't move anymore.
Nearly ate himself to death.
And, at first, even now, the picture looks funny. Even now, we are laughing about it. Yep. But when we think of it, we realize that the poor animal was unable to control itself. Mm-hmm. It almost killed itself because it ate too much.
I think that's me some days.
But here's the thing, that sometimes maximizer, they are like our poor possum.
Right.
They don't eat too much patisserie, but they over-consume information. Yeah. They simply spend too much time and effort thinking and analyzing information. They binge on information because they have the belief that the more information they have, the better their outcome will be.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you know, the more information I have, the better my decision will be. The more information I have, the better my presentation will be. And the list goes on.
Oh gosh, that actually sounds like me back when I was at uni, and you know, I'd start looking for my journal articles, and then I go, oh my gosh, I have to go and follow this one now, and it would be like being a detective and just trying to find all of this information because it was going to really enrich my assignment and, you know, get me a great grade. So I so resonate with that. I really relate to it.
Yeah. But
it can be overwhelming as
correct,
well.
because
Like,
more
you can
is not
just
always the best.
drown in it all.
That's it. You know, you're overwhelmed by the amount of information.
Yeah.
And you can end up in what is called analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
It's when, you know, there are so many parameters, so many moving parts that you are unable to fit them together and come up with a decision or a choice.
Yeah.
So that's impacting you, but it also can impact people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. So were they all our types?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that with us. And just to our listeners, you know, which of them sounds like, you know, it could be you. Great. And grab a copy of Lison's book for some tips.
Yeah, because I share tips.
Address it.
Yeah, according to which type you are. Like you have
Yes.
more tips that are dedicated to which overthinker you are.
I loved in your book how you had the QR code where you can go and get more information from the website as well. Fabulous idea.
Yeah, and nowadays everyone can scan a QR code, right?
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, such a cool world we live in. So, Lison, let's think about some scenarios that our listeners could find themselves overthinking and consider what they might do. So let's imagine they've got 2 job offers on the table. How does someone make a decision if they both sort of seem like they've, you know, got pros and cons? And what might they do?
Yeah. So that's a question that is going on in a lot of overthinkers' mind from the interview I did and worldwide. You know, it's not like it's a worldwide question.
Yeah.
And so if you are hesitating between like 2 job offers, maybe before I would like to share the notion of what's a hard choice. Because in fact, for some people, they will know it will be an easy choice for them to know which job offers they want, because maybe from day one, they knew whether they wanted to be a firefighter or a doctor, and that's easy for them to make decision in their career path.
Yes.
And for others, it might not be the case, and they might fall into analysis paralysis again. And in fact, I really like the notion that Dr. Ruth Chang shared in a TED Talk.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
She's talking about like being on the par. So imagine you are at the airport and you have 2 suitcases and you don't know which one is heavier, lighter, or maybe they have the same weight. So at the airport, maybe you can have a scale and you can weight which one it is, and that's going to be easy for you to know. But now if you're at home and you have those 2 suitcases with you and you don't have any scale, so you try to feel them. You are carrying like each suitcase and you try to see if like one is like maybe heavier, lighter, or the same weight. But maybe it's difficult to know which one is like, if there is any difference in terms of their value. And in fact, that's where I'm coming, in fact. So when we make hard choice, we need to understand our value, because we can be focused on like the outcome, and we want to find the process is to find the outcome. But how about we reframe ourselves and say, okay, what is the value here? And be more like into a decision making that is value based. So for example, like a tip, if you don't know between 2 job offers, which one you should take, go and see one of your friends. You quickly tell them in 2 minutes those 2 job offers, what they are about, and they will say, but it's easy. You should take the tech startup because you love, like, you are passionate about this topic, you love to work in a very high speed environment rather than like working maybe for the government, and which is more slow pace. But, you know, So it's easy because they know your value. So they quickly will be able to tell you which one is maybe better for you.
Yes. Yeah, cool. And I guess there's always that possibility that you might go, oh my gosh, I don't agree. But then you've got that clarity around which is the choice for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks. And what about work relationships? Is that something that people can overthink a bit? And, what advice would you give somebody around that?
So yes, during my interviews, I heard people that, they were in a meeting and maybe like their boss had a comment that was a bit, weird, and they didn't know how to react at that time, and so they just keep it for themselves. But what's happening is that they will ruminate about this comment for days, for weeks, and I have even had a lady, she couldn't eat because she went into a rabbit hole and she started to have some movies ongoing, am I gonna get fired or this kind of stuff. And then you can lose confidence in yourself, and so that definitely is happening around out there. And so what to do is address anything the quickest possible. Like, like don't wait. That would be my advice, is like address it. So then
have a conversation. Yeah. Is that what you recommend?
Have a conversation or address it within yourself. Like maybe asking you, what did it trigger? Why? Like what? And then, of course, have a one-on-one conversation with maybe the person but address it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's right. I mean, often things from our past come in and, influence our perception, don't they? And I'm a really big fan of Brené Brown's work, and she talks about SFDs, shitty first drafts, and the fact that we humans are meaning-making machines who are constantly making up stories, and there's real value in checking in with others about the stories that we're creating, because often our perspective, our perception on what's going on is completely different to that other person. So
correct. Like in another situation that could happen, like imagine you have a car crash in the street and you have 3 people that notice this car crash, and then they will go to the police station and they will share like 3 different stories, right? Totally. But only one event happened, but 3 different stories.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Hey, there is no absolute reality. Everyone's reality is different. We were just talking about that in a workshop I ran earlier today. And, everything that we're experiencing is interpreted through our own filters and values and beliefs and past experiences. And, it makes sense that eyewitness accounts can be different. Pam Grout, an author, there's this beautiful quote attributed to her where she says that life is, hang on, what is it? It's, I think it's life is a hologram of what's going on inside of us, right? We are creating this world, this experience, which is absolutely the outcome of our senses and our experiences. So I so loved that when I heard it.
Correct. We are our own movie director.
Yes. Absolutely. Gosh, we humans are so interesting. Yeah, cool. So I think a little bit about my background and how I sort of had this mental health crisis back in 2012. Then
I watched your video.
Oh yeah,
online.
right. Australian Story. It's and so great to be on the other side of that. But back when it happened, I actually got stuck in this real whirlpool of negative thoughts, and it sort of felt just like, my life was unraveling, and I was sort of really stuck in it. And it looking back, I can see how irrational it was. But yeah, at the time, it all felt really real to me, and I felt like I couldn't get out of it. And when I read your book, something I really loved was the process that you offered for navigating that spiral of negative thoughts. So, talking about our normalizing our emotional state first. Do you want to talk us through that process? Because I really love it, and I see now that I use that, but I certainly did not have those skills back then.
Is it the acknowledgement, assessment, adjustment?
Oh, so this was around the
grounding techniques.
Yeah, the awareness.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my gosh, my heart started racing. I know I've sort of been hijacked here. So it's sort of like the awareness, the breathing and grounding.
Yeah. So that's one, and so it's definitely acknowledging what is happening.
Yeah.
And it simply requires us to ask ourselves, what do I feel? It's not why do I feel that, it's what do I feel now. And why? Because that's called affect labeling. And so researchers at the University of California that measure the patient brain's activity using fMRI, and when they were asked to name their emotion, to name their feelings, they observe a decrease in the amygdala activation needed to improve emotion regulation.
Yes.
So
that's so exciting.
And that's, as counterintuitive it might seem, if you notice negative thoughts, if you notice negative emotion, you have to welcome them. You say, hey, welcome. And you have to observe them. And you have to label them. And this simple process will decrease their intensity, helping you to feel and think better.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So that's the first part, right? And then when the second part is the assessment. So when you acknowledge, you check your emotional state, right? And from that place, we can start working. We need, and the grounding techniques help, right?
Yes. How do you suggest someone grounds themselves? Because this is, for some people, this sort of, these skills, this sort of information, knowledge is still quite new.
Correct. So one that is easy to use anywhere is to name 5 things. So 5, and using your 5 sense, like 5 things that you can hear, and you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things you can hear, 4 things that you can see, 3 things that you can touch, and you go that to 1. And another one is that the 12-item techniques. So for example, if you're in the office, you can see like a chair, and then you have to find 12 different objects that will be like chair, table, or whatever. Or like it can be 12 countries. Okay. And by doing that, you are going to ground yourself. So you have to go up to 12, not 3, 4, 5. Wow. It's really up to 12. So even in the bed, if you close your eyes, you can't sleep, maybe try to find 12 cities around there that you know of. So they are grounding techniques.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing those with us.
And so when you are grounded, then you can assess. You can find the silver linings of whatever situation you are. Like you can try to find some positive in the negative, and that is called cognitive reappraisal. So you have to challenge. Yes. You have to challenge yourself, and you can try to play the devil's advocate with yourself.
Devil's advocate, yeah.
So like the devil advocate, like if you are from one maybe situation, or you see something in one situation, the role of the devil's advocate is to see the opposite. So that is going to help you to assess and find some silver lining. But of course, some situations, they are just bad in life, and you can't do the devil's advocate or like reframe anything. Like it could be like illness or someone die. Yes. But like, for example, if you compare that to losing a job, what is the silver lining of losing a job? What's in your control? And can it be like a new chapter of your life?
Yes.
And as well, another way maybe to then go into the last stage, which is adjustment. If you still can't make it with whatever I just said now, you can use active meditation, which is not passive meditation.
Yeah, tell us about that. That's because I feel like meditation is often a challenge for me, sitting in one place and, trying to still my mind. So tell us about active meditation.
It's a challenge for a lot of overthinkers. Because overthinkers, they are already in their thoughts, right? So you ask them to sit and be even more in their thoughts. And in fact, I would strongly recommend not to do passive meditation for overthinker, but because those thoughts can become even more vivid.
Right.
And they can,
if you stop,
because it's really hard for overthinker to detach themselves maybe from the thought that they are having. So because I think overthinker, they are not looking at your thoughts, because in passive meditation it's like look at your thoughts.
Overthinker, you're observing them, aren't
they
you?
leave them. They leave their thoughts, right?
They live them, yes.
Yeah. So passive meditation is a torture for them. So because you put yourself in having more of those thoughts. So I think active meditation is something that you do. Like it can be like a tea ceremony, it can be gardening. It's something that is relaxing for your mind, but you are active in doing something. It can be painting, something you do over and over, but you are kind of in action as well. And you can express yourself in doing this kind of stuff. So that's why I would strongly recommend overthinker to practice more active meditation.
So it almost sounds like my cycling could be a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So I guess, is it about just being really present? Is that?
Yes.
Does that sort of meet that criteria of being a form of meditation?
Yeah. It's coming back to the present.
Yes. Yeah. I talk a lot of in my keynotes about having your thing, that thing that energizes you, that brings you fully into the moment, that puts you into that flow state.
Correct.
And for me, it's cycling and dancing and, listening to music. But yeah, I love that idea of an active meditation. That's really awesome. I think that would be very helpful for our listeners. So, oh my gosh, Lison, you have shared so many cool strategies with us. We're sort of coming towards the end of our discussion, and I just wondered, are there any other methods for addressing overthinking that we haven't chatted about yet? Is there anything you feel would be really valuable?
Of course.
You wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah, but I could even write 3 books on the topic.
Gosh.
So
you interviewed 365 people
worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's
a lot of data.
Indeed. So just because, I want to make it simple, and it's more a philosophy. So it's about being curious and audacious. So you have
being curious and what?
And audacious. So you have to foster curiosity. So usually overthinker, they are very good with that. They will, they are going to be curious. They're going to learn about some topics and even maybe too much.
Yeah.
And so they won't do things.
Yeah.
So you have to go into doing, which is you have to be audacious to do the things. You have to be bold, to be courageous and take action.
Right.
So that's why another tip is like you can ask yourself recently, have I been enough curious and audacious, or have I been only curious and not audacious enough?
Right. So the audacity is around taking action.
Taking action about your curiosity. Right. Whatever you were curious about. Now it's time to be audacious about it.
To actually do it and stop thinking about it.
Exactly.
Right. Great. Thank you. Anything else there?
Sure. Like now we are talking about action, like nowadays it's really easy to consume information, to read self-help book, to listen podcasts, to feel good about ourselves. And it's great, and I believe that those insights are gold. But we also need to make sure that we are consuming in a healthy way. That we learn great things, because otherwise we learn something, but the next day we do the same things as before. Yeah. So I would like to encourage our listener today to take action. So every time you consume some new information, like watching a TED Talk, listening to a podcast, find at least one thing you will apply for yourself and start doing it right after. So my final message, let me ask you, what will you take away from listening to this conversation and start doing, or maybe stop doing? What is the one action you will take now?
Awesome. That's a beautiful segue into concluding our session today. Lison, thank you. Thank you for sharing so generously your wisdom and, this great information with our audience. If people want to buy a book, where would they go?
Like Amazon, I guess.
Amazon,
worldwide.
yes.
It's available worldwide on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
So Act Before You Overthink.
Yes.
Beautiful. Great. And what about your social media channels? How do people reach out to you if they say wanted you to come and speak to their workplace?
Yeah, so any social media platform, like you just Google Lison Mage and you can add me on LinkedIn. I love to, I think LinkedIn is the main platform where I'm the most active.
Okay, fabulous. So Lison's name, how you spell that? Lison, and her surname is Mage. So thank you, Lison. It's been
Donna.
Absolute pleasure to catch up today.
And thank you for being at my book launch. I really appreciate that. Like your energy, like how we pop the balloon at the end. That was great.
It was great fun. Thank you. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.